What's going on, everybody? It's Ricky with Video Homicide, back with day 6 of the 31 Days of Horror here at Video Homicide. I'm very excited, very happy to announce that I just watched another film for the first time, and it is awesome. And that film is directed by Antonio Margheriti, 1980s Cannibal Apocalypse. Okay, now this film stars John Saxon. It stars Giovanni Ribisi, who was in movies like Cannibal Ferox. He was also in Gates of Hell by Lucio Fulci, and it stars Tony King Tony King was a football player that turned actor. He was in movies like Shaft, as a bit role. He had a bit role in The Godfather, and so on and so forth. But this movie is all about I gotta say this real quick. This poster, this cover art, is very misleading because let me give you a little bit of backstory on how I found out about this film. So my uncle Mike, who has been on the channel before, he came downstairs one day. I was dropping something off at his apartment, and he came down and he had a stack of movies that he just bought, and this was one of them. And I was jealous because I read the back, and there's like this Cannibal Apocalypse redo documentary, which I'll talk about soon, and interview with Tony King, so on and so forth. And I was like, damn, that movie looks so good. And the way that this cover art preceded it, or made it look to me, was this was a zombie film. Okay, now it is not a zombie film, it is a cannibal film. Okay, so like all this shit with John Saxon looking like a zombie, Giovanni Lombardo looking like a zombie, Tony King looking like a fucking madman, that actually happens in the film. But anyways, this movie is all about these Vietnam veterans. Okay, so it starts off with some stock footage from the Vietnam War. You can really tell the difference between the stock footage and the stuff they actually shot for the film, because it's just like grainier than a box of fucking mini wheats, man. I'm telling you, but you know what? It's fine, because that is the footage that we got, from such a terrible atrocity of the war, But anyways, John Saxon is a captain, and he's looking for a couple of POWs, which are Giovanni and Tony King. So they're basically in like this little tiny hole in the ground, being held captive by the Viet Cong, and they're being starved and all that stuff. And when the captain, John Saxon, arrives, he kind of flushes out all the Viet Cong and all that kind of shit. There's a scene where there's this dog, and this one of the soldiers, the American soldiers, is like, "Oh, come here, boy." John Saxon's like, "Leave it alone, get away from it." And the guy's like, "What's this?" Under the dog's collar. Of course, it's rigged, so it explodes. This fucking exploding dog in the first like 45 seconds of the film. And then John Saxon, him and his crew, they do damage to all these assholes, and this one woman is like caught on fire and she falls into the hole. And then Giovanni and Tony, they eat her. Like, he rips his shirt off, shows her titties, and he just bites one of her titties off, and they're eating her arms and all that shit. And then the captain, John Saxon, finally finds his buddies down in this hole, and he's like, "Come on, guys!" He's reaching his arm down, and Tony King runs up and bites his arm, and then all of a sudden, boom! John Saxon awakes from this horrible dream, of shit that actually happened. So, his friend Giovanni gets released from this mental institution, and he calls up John Saxon. He's like, "Hey, how about a beer, buddy? I'm out of the hospital. Let's have a beer." John Saxon at the time is being like seduced by this like 15-year-old girl from next door, and it makes it look like he's going to go down on her, but he just bites her. And that kind of gives you, a little bit of a foreshadowing of what's going to happen with the rest of the movie. And Giovanni, who's like, walking around the streets of Atlanta, he winds up going into this movie theater where this couple sit in front of him. They start making out. Their titties are out and all that kind of stuff. And then Giovanni has enough and he bites her in the neck. And, then it's basically a chase from the movie theater to this flea market where he just, kind of bunkers down, and he finds a shotgun, some shells, and some liquor, and he's being chased by this biker gang, and he kills a few of them, or he kills one of the biker gang, and then he kills a security guard. And it's really cool because there's lots of blood in this film. Like, everything looks pretty goddamn good, I will say, for such a low-budgeted film. And John Saxon's wife, who is like... I forget, I think she worked at a hospital, or she worked for like a TV station or something like that. And anyway, she finds out that there's this Vietnam vet who's held up at this flea market with a couple of dead bodies, and she thinks it's his husband. She thinks it's her husband. And she calls John. John's like, "No, I'm fine. And then he knows that it's his buddy because he called him earlier in the morning. So he goes there and basically gets him set free. and taken back to the hospital. But in like during all this madness, one of the police officers gets bit by Giovanni and goes back to the station. So you're seeing all these people get bit, and you know that it's going to build up to something, and it does, which is awesome, because everyone that's been infected with these bites, with this like crazy Vietnam virus that is being passed around by Saxon, Giovanni, and Tony King. So like doctors are infected, nurses are infected, police are infected, and people are just going off the rails. But it's not like off the rails to the point of like a full-fledged zombie flick, because these cannibals are still like the person, they just are cannibals, but like they kind of like roam together. So John Saxon makes his way to this hospital, and he basically saves Giovanni, Tony, and this nurse, and they flee in an ambulance, and they end up going to this gas station where they kill this guy, and take his car, and then they get ambushed by the bikers, and then the cops show up, and it's just there's so much madness. This is one of those movies where it's kind of a non-stop ride, you know what I mean? And it's cool because I actually took some notes, which I'm going to refer to real quick. So there's a scene when they're inside the flea market, and the cops like, we're going to tear gas you, and John Saxon is in there with Giovanni, and the tear gas falls, and then John Saxon kind of has one of these moments where he falls back into the role of being the captain. He says, all you got to do is piss on it. And then Giovanni's like already pissing on it. So it's like one of those things, like, will that actually work? Is that a thing that happened in the Vietnam War? I don't know. Of course, one of like the best scenes, and like it was on the original poster art for the film, Giovanni gets shot through the stomach later on in the film near the end. And you can see right through like his guts, like through his stomach. Where his stomach would be is no longer. It's just a fucking hole. And I really like how they did that. I was wondering how they did that. I'm thinking maybe either a mirror, or because it was such low budget. Like they talk about that in the special features, how low budget this film was. And it's just really cool. And then Tony King has his like final standoff with the police. He gets lit on fire. Like there's a lot of flamethrowers throughout this film, which I'm fine with, because I think it's such a underused weapon in cinema, other than like war films and shit like that. There's also this little subplot, like I mentioned, with this young neighbor girl that John Saxon was fucking around with, because she was bitten. She in turn infects her little brother, and they kill their bitch aunt, who is just a total fucking cocksucker cunt. I hated that actress. And at the end of the film, the two kids, like the girl and her little brother, are standing at the door watching all the police at her house, because John Saxon, led the carnage back to his place. And, the final shot is like a zoom shot of in between the two kids, like the camera goes past them, and you see like a hand sticking out of the fridge, which I thought was cool as hell, One thing about like the Italian, direction in films and a lot of the camera movements, like they're really good at doing these reveals through zooms, you know what I mean? I really like that stuff. And, to get into the special features of this film, the Cannibal Apocalypse Redo documentary is like an hour-long interview with John Saxon, Antonio Margheriti, and Giovanni Ribisi, and it's fucking awesome. They talk about all kinds of stuff, like everything from the Freddy Krueger films a little bit. Giovanni tells this story about how when they were on the set of City of the Living Dead, that when he was in the makeup, like in that one shot where like they go into the bar and they attack the bartender, he said him and the one actress smoked some pot inside of the car, like inside of the van, while they were waiting. So I like to believe, he kind of confirms that they were stoned when they were done up as the zombies in that Fulci flick, which I thought was really cool. And another cool thing was the director, Antonio Margheriti. My light just went off, for fuck's sakes, but we'll leave it off for now. Antonio Margheriti talks about how much of a fan Tarantino is of his works, and like how his stuff was kind of like lifted from his films and put into the Tarantino flicks. I thought that was really cool. And one thing I found really interesting was John Saxon kind of had this little bit of a little speech where he talked about, horror films, like when they started off, they were scary, but by the time they reached to the 6th, 7th film, it was a joke, kind of a laughing stock thing. And he did a good example. He said, the Mummy films were scary. By the time he got to the 7th one, they were meeting Abbott and Costello, who were two comedic actors. And he said that's the same kind of thing that happened with Freddy Krueger, Jason, not so much Jason, but Freddy Krueger especially. you know, and they ended up with Freddy versus Jason. Like, I don't know, it was a really interesting documentary. I would highly recommend picking up this edition put out by Kino Lorbe. And yeah, I actually got this from my girlfriend for my birthday the other day, and I really loved it. This was the first film I watched out of the batch of movies she got me. So yeah, with that being said, I appreciate everybody for watching. Leave a 666 in the comments, and adios.